The 2011 NBA draft class might just be one of the greatest draft classes in NBA history. Definitely one of the best of the past decade, if not the best. You had some great players in there such as Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, Jimmy Butler, and then of course, Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, who is widely seen as probably the best player in this draft class. But a lot of people don't remember that he was actually drafted by the Indiana Pacers, not the San Antonio Spurs. But what if he was a Pacer and he never played for the San Antonio Spurs? How would that change history? Well, we're about to find out. What's going on, guys? SMH Super Mario Hoops back with some more hoops. And today I'm doing a what if NBA video about what if Kawhi Leonard was never traded to the San Antonio Spurs from the Indiana Pacers. Now, before I get into this video, there's going to be a few things I'm going to discuss. First of all, I went through a lot of time and a lot of effort for this, so I'm going to need you guys to like this video and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So the original trade consisted of George Hill being traded from the San Antonio Spurs to the Indiana Pacers in exchange for Kawhi Leonard, and then also a lot of people forget that Davis Bertans was also in this deal as well. So in the 2011-2012 season, the Pacers win 2 more games with Kawhi Leonard, and the Spurs lose just about 2 more games. Not really too much difference, and in fact, just about everything will stay the same. Same outcome in the NBA Finals. The Miami Heat still win, are NBA champions, and LeBron James is your Finals MVP. Moving on to the next season, 2012-2013, is when the Pacers have a decision that they can make now that will be a lot easier. Originally, they kind of let go of Darren Collison because they were making room for George Hill, but now they don't have to worry about George Hill because they have Kawhi Leonard, so they don't have George Hill. Also, this is around the time where Danny Granger started to suffer a lot of injuries, which means that Kawhi Leonard is going to move into the starting lineup and get a bigger role on this team. And with that being the case, the Pacers actually win about 8 more games in the season, whereas the Spurs lose 6 more games. As you can see on the screen, here's how the standings will change. I only showed the playoff teams because it doesn't really change anything outside of the playoffs. And originally in 2013, the Pacers lost to the Miami Heat in 7 games with just Paul George against a 3 All-Star team and LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh in Miami. So with that all being said, adding Kawhi Leonard to the mix, I ultimately have to pick the Indiana Pacers to win that series in just about 6 games, which means that I have them going on to the NBA Finals. Whereas the Western Conference playoffs look a little bit different. I have the Thunder beating the Houston Rockets. The Nuggets would beat the Lakers as they don't have Kobe Bryant because he tore his Achilles still. The Clippers still beat the Warriors just like they did 1 year after this in real life. And the Spurs beat the Grizzlies because they did pretty badly in real life, and even without Kawhi, they still are pretty much the better team. The Spurs would be the Thunder because we have to assume Russell Westbrook still gets hurt as he's playing against Patrick Beverley and the Houston Rockets. That doesn't really change anything. And I have the Clippers beating the Nuggets as they don't have Danilo Gallinari. When it comes to the Clippers versus Spurs, now this is really tough, but I actually picked the Clippers because I think that they have more all-around depth, and it's really surprising in real life they didn't even get to the conference finals. I have them going on to the NBA Finals to play the Indiana Pacers, but unfortunately, I don't think that they're going to be enough for the Indiana Pacers. I think the Pacers are just a bit deeper. I think they have the better matchup all around. And the Indiana Pacers will win the NBA championship in just the second year, with Paul George being the Finals MVP. Now, ultimately, all the standings switch-ups is going to cause for a ruckus in the draft lottery, which is why the Spurs move up in the draft and they're able to select Rudy Gobert with their selection. And with the Jazz not able to get Rudy Gobert and they need to find a center, they ultimately go for pretty much a gamble in Andrew Bynum, who really hasn't played in just about over a year, because they were still looking for a center as there was still question about whether Enes Kanter could be the starting center on this team. Ultimately, with the Spurs being a bit of a disappointment more this year than they did in real life of this year, they have to pay Manu Ginobili and Tiago Splitter just a bit more money, which means ultimately they miss out on getting Marco Bellinelli, who had a deal to sign with the Cleveland Cavaliers in real life as well. So as we get into the 2013-2014 NBA season, the Pacers win 10 more games, the Spurs lose 10 more games, and the Cavs win about 6 more games is the biggest highlights in these changes. Here are the standings in real life of this season, and again, you guys can pause whenever just to check these. I mean, I'm going to be putting them on pretty quickly because there is a lot of information to get through in this video, so feel free to pause at any time, go back if you missed something, even put in the comments, whatever. So the Spurs actually pull off an upset and beat the Portland Trail Blazers, but they will lose in the second round to the Oklahoma City Thunder, who will go on actually to the NBA Finals in this season. And who will they be facing? None other than the Indiana Pacers led by Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. A lot of people thought the Pacers were going to make the finals in this year as they had the best record in the East, but ultimately the Danny Granger trade is what ruined them. And in this case, they wouldn't trade him because he was such a mentor to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George in the first championship a year before, that why would they trade him? Why would they mess up that chemistry? And the team starts flowing really well, and they actually win another championship. Only though this time, Kawhi Leonard is the finals MVP because of the defense he played on Kevin Durant. Now, like I said, this is going to cause for a big ruckus in the draft lottery, especially with the Cavs not actually being in the lottery this time, because originally they won it and they got Andrew Wiggins. But in this case, they don't get him. And in fact, Andrew Wiggins ends up a New Orleans Pelican. Elfrid Payton ends up on the Denver Nuggets. Doug McDermott goes to the Magic. Dario Saric goes to the Timberwolves just a bit early. Zach LaVine ends up as a Phoenix Sun, and TJ Warren ends up on the Atlanta Hawks. Oh, and by the way, since Doug McDermott's on the Magic, Jusuf Nurkic and Gary Harris stay on the Chicago Bulls. And while the Jazz went after a center like Andrew Bynum the previous year, they signed him to a 2-year deal, which is actually what he signed in real life. And that ultimately means that they can't match the offer for Gordon Hayward, who in real life signed with the Charlotte Bobcats / Hornets because they were just about to change their name. Not to mention they also draft Clint Capella in the draft too. Also the Heat get Bogdan Bogdanovic. Now ultimately we still have to assume that Paul George breaks his leg for the USA team in the summer. So we kind of have to take that into account when we're looking at the Pacers this season. As for the Spurs, with multiple misfortunes after another, Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili actually decide to retire very early. As for Tony Parker though, he's not retiring. If you remember, he actually ended his career with the Charlotte Hornets to play alongside his French counterpart, Nicolas Batum. But in this time, Nicolas Batum's in Portland. And remember when I said Andrew Wiggins didn't end up on the Cleveland Cavaliers? Well, that means that they cannot trade him to get Kevin Love. And Kevin Love verbally said that he wanted out of Minnesota. So what does that mean? There's got to be another trade on the table, right? And yes, there was. Kevin Love gets traded to the Golden State Warriors in exchange for Klay Thompson. Now, there's a lot of teams that are going to increase and decrease after this crazy, hectic offseason, so I'm just going to show them up on the screen there. And now getting into the playoffs. Now, this is where the fun starts to get going. So we get through the first round. The Warriors would win in 5 over the Thunder. The Grizzlies beat the Trailblazers in 7. Rockets beat the Pelicans in 6. Clippers sweep the Mavs. Hawks actually lose to the Bucks in 7, as they actually almost lost as a first seed in real life. And I think the Bucks team is a little bit better than that team that they played in the Brooklyn Nets in 2015 in real life. The Cavs with LeBron James, as he did go home, end up beating the Indiana Pacers 4-2, as they don't really have a healthy Paul George. The Bulls beat the Hornets in 5. And just like real life, the Wizards actually sweep the Raptors. The Grizzlies almost beat the Warriors in real life, and now without Klay and Kevin Love instead, I think they do win this in 6. The Rockets beat the Clippers in 7 in real life, so we have to assume that's the same. I give the Cavs 5 games to beat the Milwaukee Bucks, and I give the Bulls just as many to beat the Wizards. As for the conference finals, it's really tough because the Grizzlies had one of the best defenses at that time, so I have them actually winning this series in 7. As for the Eastern Conference Finals, the Bulls almost beat the Cavs and were somewhat robbed in Game 4 by the refs. And adding Gary Harris and Jusuf Nurkic to that mix, I think it makes it just only easier to put them the favorites in the series. So I have them winning in 6. And with an NBA Finals of the Chicago Bulls and the Memphis Grizzlies, I think the Chicago Bulls win. Both are great defensive teams, but ultimately the Bulls are the better offensive team. And I have Derrick Rose winning the Finals MVP. Now, a lot of people could have Jimmy Butler, but ultimately he's probably going to be guarded by Tony Allen all series. And Derrick Rose has a history of getting the best of Mike Conley, so I have Derrick Rose winning the Finals MVP. Moving on to the 2015 draft, here's the notable changes. Justice Winslow gets picked by the Denver Nuggets. Devin Booker actually goes to the Atlanta Hawks to join his actual Suns counterpart TJ Warren. Kelly Oubre goes to the Suns a few years early, and Miles Turner goes to the Bucks. Now, LaMarcus Aldridge originally went to the Spurs, but now this time he is going to sign with the Los Angeles Lakers. DeAndre Jordan is going to sign with the Dallas Mavericks and not be persuaded now that they're going to be keeping Monte Ellis on the team as well, because there's no reason for him to go to Indiana, as there's pretty much no room with Kawhi and Paul George. Greg Monroe goes to the Knicks with Miles Turner in Milwaukee. Batum and Robin Lopez both stay, as there's pretty much no way that they can go to their places they originally went. And they also try and sign a guy like Amir Johnson, as he probably doesn't want to go to the Boston Celtics at this point, as they were not a playoff team. Rondo goes to the Lakers a few years early, and they also get Enes Kanter. Tyson Chandler goes to the Oklahoma City Thunder, as he probably should have in a trade a few years earlier. And we're assuming David West pretty much stays in the Pacers as kind of a veteran leadership. So moving on to the 2015-2016 NBA season, here are the most notable changes. Here are the standings. You are free to pause. Moving on to the 2016 playoffs, here's how the first round stacks up. The Warriors will beat the Rockets in 6, the Thunder beat the Clippers in 5, the Mavericks beat the Grizzlies in 7, and with the Lakers' experience, I have them beating Portland in 6. I think Indiana and Cleveland both win their series in 5 over Detroit and Atlanta respectively. I have the Hornets beating the Heat in 7, which is going to be a tight series, but they're slightly better. I think the Bulls have more clutch players than the Raptors, and they will get it done in 6. As for the second round, the Bulls also get it done in 6 against the Hornets. The Lakers will get it done in 7 against the Mavericks with their experience again. Now in this case, I think the Thunder actually do get past the Golden State Warriors with no Game 6 Klay to haunt them. And with a healthy Kawhi and Paul George and the Cavs only having 2 stars at this point, I think the Pacers get back to the conference finals and beat the Cavaliers in 7 games. In the conference finals though, the Pacers will win in 6 over the Bulls and the Thunder will win in 5 games over the Lakers. And in the NBA championship, this time it's Kevin Durant getting the last laugh and the finals MVP, as the Thunder will win in 7 games. As they just pretty much have better depth at this point. The Pacers started to lose some depth after the past few seasons, so that's pretty much the big thing here. Notable draft changes: Brandon Ingram goes to the Celtics, Jaylen Brown to the Suns, Chris Dunn to the Spurs. The Timberwolves get both Jakob Poeltl and Malcolm Brogdon. Pascal Siakam goes to the Trailblazers, Malik Beasley to the Lakers, and Denzel Valentine to the Celtics. Now in the 2016 offseason, Kevin Durant ultimately stays with the Oklahoma City Thunder, if that wasn't obvious enough. And LeBron, aka Le GM, is trying to make some moves to try and get a third guy on his team. So he's looking at a guy like Al Horford, who did leave the Hawks in real life, and he's going to be coming to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Dwayne Wade goes to the Bucks, as he was actually considering signing there, and he still feels neglected by the Miami Heat trying to pay Hassan Whiteside over him. And with the Bulls not really being a viable option at this point, Milwaukee seems like the next best thing. And the Rockets need a center, so they pick up a guy like Al Jefferson. And by the way, this is the season that Davis Bertans comes over from the overseas, so he will be making his NBA debut with the Indiana Pacers. Now, all these guys that I'm going to be showing on the screen are going to be staying on their teams, or the trade will just not happen, just to pretty much get through those. The biggest changes for the season: the Lakers win 15 games more, the Hornets win 13 games more, and the Spurs and Jazz combine for losing 56 more games together. And as we take a quick look at the standings once again, and we're about to hop right into the 2017 NBA playoffs. So we got the Warriors winning in 5 over the Nuggets. Trailblazers beat the Grizzlies in 6. The Thunder do the same to the Clippers, as there's no DeAndre Jordan now. And the Rockets beat the Mavericks in 5. The Cavs sweep the Bucks in the first round. The Pacers are the better team than the Hawks, so they win in 6. The Bulls beat the Raptors yet again, but in 6 games. And the Washington Wizards, actually on one of their better years, beat the Hornets in 7 games. In the second round, the Warriors get past the Trailblazers in 6. The Thunder also beat Houston in 6. The Cavaliers will actually do the same to the Indiana Pacers, as now with Al Horford added to their team, it gives them a little bit of a problem. So they actually get to the conference finals. And the Chicago Bulls get past the Washington Wizards in 7 games with Jimmy Butler, Derrick Rose, and all those guys on the team. And in the conference finals, the Warriors will still win in 7. If you guys remember, Steph Curry actually really early in this 2017 NBA playoffs was pretty much going insane. As for the Eastern Conference, I think the Cavs would win this one in 6 and go to the finals. And with a familiar finals matchup of the 2010s decade, it's actually the Cleveland Cavaliers that come out with the W in this one. And LeBron James brings a title back home to Cleveland and wins the finals MVP just a year later than what normally was. As for the big rookies that will be moving somewhere else, Lonzo Ball ends up getting picked by the Jazz. The Spurs pick Lauri Markkanen, Zach Collins to the Timberwolves, Dennis Smith Jr. to the Pistons, Luke Kennard to the Kings, Donovan Mitchell actually gets picked by the Lakers, Malik Monk to the Nuggets, Jared Allen to the Trailblazers, and OG Anunoby to the Indiana Pacers. Now, ultimately, with everything that's gone down in the last few years, Paul George and Carmelo Anthony both don't end up on the Oklahoma City Thunder. And obviously, Gordon Hayward doesn't end up on the Boston Celtics because they don't really look like a great team anyways. Plus, I mean, he still is on a pretty solid team in Charlotte. Rudy Gay will sign with the Portland Trailblazers, Dwayne Dedmon goes to the Pacers, and here we are moving on to the 2017-2018 season. The biggest improvements being the Chicago Bulls win 23 more games and the Charlotte Hornets win 20 more. The Spurs still lose 14 more games and 12 more losses for both the Jazz and the Toronto Raptors. As we move through the standings really quick, one interesting thing is that the Charlotte Hornets actually have the best record in the Eastern Conference. Who would have believed that? The Charlotte Hornets have the best record in the Eastern Conference. Now that we all see that, let's get on to the 2018 NBA playoffs, where the Rockets beat the Nuggets in 5, the Thunder beat the Lakers in 6, Trailblazers beat the Timberwolves in 5. And the Pelicans actually sweep the Warriors. Now, if you guys remember, Steph Curry was actually injured in this series. And Anthony Davis, I think he would pretty much just go off with that being the case. There's no Kevin Durant or Klay Thompson to help him there. The Charlotte Hornets, as the first seed, beat the Celtics in 6 in the first round. I think the Bulls get past the Bucks in 7, as they do have a lot of the more veteran, experienced players. The Cavs sweep the Raptors just like real life. And the Pacers come back and beat the Sixers in 5. Moving on to the second round, the Rockets were a really good team this year, and that's why I have them winning this series in 6 games over the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, this one's going to surprise people, is that I have Portland winning this series in 7. I think that they have way more bigs, and they also have way more wings to help make threes on the perimeter, also D up inside. Plus, the Pelicans are missing playoff Rondo, which is a big thing. So I have it being a very close series, as it was a close series for just about every single game individually in real life, even though it resulted in a sweep. But I have Portland winning this in 7. Charlotte will beat the Bulls in 6, and the Pacers will beat the Cavs in 7. Now, here's the thing with this one. I know people will think that Kawhi will not be playing at this point because he didn't play in real life, but I think knowing the Indiana Pacers and how they handled the Paul George situation, where they pretty much wrote out the entire season and let him come back when he was fully ready to, I think they would do the same thing with Kawhi, and by that being the case, I think he would be ready come playoff time. The Pacers and Rockets both win their respective series in 6, and it leads up to a finals matchup that's really nice, but ultimately, the Indiana Pacers match up better, and they win this series in 6, which gives Kawhi Leonard his second finals MVP. Now, here are the list of all the notable rookies that end up going to different teams in the NBA. With the Warriors not being a complete super team, Boogie ends up actually staying with the Pelicans. Obviously, both Kawhi and Paul George are going to stay with the Pacers. LeBron still stays with the Cleveland Cavaliers. D-Wade goes back to Miami in this season, not in the middle of last season like in real life. And notable offseason moves would be DeAndre Jordan signing with the Utah Jazz and Tyreek Evans to the Wizards. Now, for the 2018-2019 NBA season, the biggest changes here will be the Charlotte Hornets and the Los Angeles Lakers both win 12 games. The Cavs win 15, but the Bulls win 20. The Toronto Raptors will lose 14 more games, as they kind of lose a lot of their big support and their wing depth. And also, don't forget to mention 15 losses for the Golden State Warriors, as Kevin Love actually missed a lot of the season due to an injury. And as we look through the standings, you also might have missed that the Blazers actually won 12 more games. And with that being the case, them having the best record in the league, I think Damian Lillard ends up getting the MVP of the regular season. Moving on to the playoffs, the Blazers win against the Kings in 5. Nuggets beat the Clippers in 6. OKC gets it done in about 7 games against the Timberwolves. And Lakers get business done in 6. Bucks over Celtics in 6. The Raptors beat the Sixers in 7 games. The Pacers beat the Bulls in a tough 6 games, and the Hornets in a pretty easy series get it done in 5. A 4-2 series win for both Portland and Indiana, a 4-1 series win for the Bucks, and 4-3 in a tough series against the Lakers, but a win for the Oklahoma City Thunder. As for the conference finals, the Pacers match up really well with the Milwaukee Bucks, which is why I have them winning in 6. As for the Portland Trailblazers, who I also have winning in this, I think they have a lot of defensive firepower in them. Rudy Gay, Pascal Siakam, who was also drafted by them if you remember, Al-Farouq Aminu, Mo Harkless, and it would definitely help slow down Kevin Durant. And when it comes to Damian Lillard and Russell Westbrook in a playoff series, I think we already know how that's going to go. But ultimately in the NBA Finals, I don't think Portland's going to be able to compete when there's two-way monsters on Indiana in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, which is why Indiana will win this in 5 games. And Kawhi Leonard gets, yet again, the Finals MVP. Now, here's where a lot of the rookies will end up going. Zion Williamson to the Grizzlies, RJ Barrett to the Wizards, Ja Morant to the Suns, Brandon Clark to the Raptors, Rui Hachimura to the Pelicans, PJ Washington and Tyler Hero to the Bulls and Jazz respectively, and Kobe White goes to the Cavs. Now, in the offseason, this is a really interesting thing because the Knicks actually do have cap space, and they will get Kyrie Irving. He goes there to not only join Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis that's already there, but also don't forget Carmelo Anthony is still there because he never went to OKC. Julius Randle ends up signing with the Dallas Mavericks. D'Angelo Russell, don't forget, is still with the Los Angeles Lakers. And the Warriors signed Jeremy Lamb for a 1-year deal as they kind of need some shooting guard depth. Forgot to mention that in this case, there's pretty much no way Anthony Davis goes to the Lakers. The biggest improvements for the season, the Atlanta Hawks win 23 more games as it's starting to work out now with Devin Booker and TJ Warren added to that squad. The Knicks win 16 more games. And as for the biggest loser, it's actually the Oklahoma City Thunder, as Kevin Durant's pretty much going to miss the entire season. And as you can see the standings, I have it updated with the amount of games that have been played in this year. which is pretty much going to cap off where we're going to be. I mean, I did make predictions for how these teams would actually fare with the talent on their team, but it's really hard to tell. This is how it ended up going. It's pretty difficult. I mean, we have to see what the talent is right now as opposed to what it could have been with certain other situations. But if this were the case, then Giannis Antetokounmpo would be the finals MVP. But to sum up the entire what if, here's what basically happened. Kawhi and Paul George win 4 championships with the Indiana Pacers, with Kawhi being the finals MVP on 3 of them. LeBron does win 1 less ring, but he does have a better finals win percentage, and he has a way tougher Eastern Conference that people can't hold that against him. Durant brings a chip to OKC and never leaves. D Rose wins a chip for his hometown Chicago Bulls. Curry is unable to bring a chip to the Bay without Clay and also Kevin Durant, but I mean, they did win without him, so basically without Clay, it's kind of harder. It's interesting because the Spurs and the Jazz took basically the entire video just to make it back to the playoffs, as they didn't make it until like the final season. The Hornets actually became a serious contender. In most of these seasons, the East was actually better than the West. And James Harden would win consecutive MVPs in 2017 and 2018, as there's no Russell Westbrook to average a triple-double, as that likely doesn't happen if he has a Kevin Durant around him. And like we said, Damian Lillard would be the 2019 MVP. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It did take a lot of time to do. I mean, I am very tired. It took me very long. Like, I was literally working on this for weeks. So if you guys haven't already, be sure to smash the like button and also smash the subscribe button. If you like content like this and you like me depriving myself of sleep just to try and get this done, then I suggest you subscribe so that I can do that some more. But on a real matter though, I hope you guys did enjoy. Hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you on the next one. I'm out. Peace.